When we came here the first time, I never really thought we were going to end up here permanently. Well, it was 2001. We had company and she wanted to come to the ocean. So we decided, hopped in the car and came into Aberdeen. Originally it was Ocean Shores, but we saw Westport and that was easy.
As we drove into town, there's a surf shop there, which right off the bat, my antenna went up and I said to Marianne, I said, they have a surf shop here? What's that all about? And you know, you kind of walk up over the hill and look out over, there's the jetty, and I see down the jetty, and there's people surfing.
It was, it was something else.
I said, oh my goodness, you can surf here? So I sent the ladies down the beach and went out to Al's surf shop and outfitted myself, and unfortunately had a Land Rover and was able to strap the board to the top and head it out in the water.
It was about 2.5 hours later we came back and there was no Jeff, and you know, both Anna and I, we looked at one another and all of a sudden I see this hand out of the water going like this, and again we looked at each other and well, he came out and we got hooked. It was also one of those days where the mountains were crystal clear, the snow on it, the rugged peaks and nothing. Growing up in Switzerland, for me that was, oh my God, that's just a stone throw away, just like at home. And so for me, that was it. And then, you know, to make him happy, being on the water.
It was so much like where I grew up on the Great Lakes. And so I felt like I was coming home in a sense.
We would come here every weekend after work.
3 or 4 years later, we said, we're coming out here enough. So we bought our first place here.
Would just come, you know, Friday night and head back, spend vacation here. As time went on and, you know, we were coming close to retirement, we finally thought, well, this might be the last best place for us, and moved here permanently in 2010. I remember we saw a little ad at the post office, volunteers needed. And I immediately called, and it was for the Historical Society. That's how the volunteer work started, working at the Lighthouse, the museum, giving tours, and we got really involved in it because, well, I had worked all my life. I didn't want to just sit on my butt and just go walking.
My involvement with the Historical Society is because I love nautical things. I grew up around nautical things. I'm a sailor. And so, you know, just being around the lighthouse to me is cool. We do not have a lighthouse keeper per se, an official. There hasn't been one since 1937. But because I have the uniform and the interest, I am the unofficial lighthouse keeper, and that's why you'll see my photos all over the place in connection with it. It's just something I sort of fell into.
Well, another hobby of Jeff is cleaning the lens at the lighthouse. And he's very meticulous and particular about it, you know. People are not supposed to touch it, but, you know, don't touch. Yes, they do.
I do have a key to the lighthouse. And every once in a while, if we're out walking around and it's on a day when it's not open, and people say, oh, gee, when can we go up and see it? I said, well, you want to go now?
We'll take him up. And
so I said, at that time, I said, I'm the unofficial lighthouse keeper, so I can take you. And we do that occasionally.
Well, of course, when we first came down here, when Jeff would surf and I would walk, and I looked for agates and I looked for beach glass and started collecting it, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know what it was.
Beachcombing is sort of a subculture, and there are fanatics out there. One person's treasure is another man's junk and the other way around. But it is fun to go down on the beach in the wintertime after or even during a storm. Of course, you have to be careful. We both have little different eyes for beachcombing. I kind of like mechanical things or just oddball things. I just have odd taste. I just start picking up the little things.
But after the tsunami, there was a lot of stuff coming in from Japan. And we got a couple of those huge oval, big black ones. We found all sorts of glass pieces, or we found a whole bunch of little soldiers, a lot of tennis shoes or from one of the containers that got washed over.
You see a beer can, it's got Japanese writing on it. That's going home. We just have an eye. There's all kinds of junk that comes in, but you really have to be here in the wintertime. A west wind after a big storm, and you're going to find stuff. I'd have to say, of all the things we've ever found, the big glass float was
that's
the top prize.
It was a beautiful, big, brown glass
Original
float.
wild float, about the size of a basketball. It had some stuff on it. We go, oh my God. We showed it to one of the local experts, and he went crazy. I mean, you just don't find stuff like that. Finding glass floats, what we call wild floats, is pretty hard. They haven't used them in decades, and finding them, they're out there every once in a while. After the Japanese tsunami, it was discovered that there were warehouses still full of them in the small Japanese fishing villages. And entrepreneurs started buying them up and shipping them over here because people wanted to have them. So that's where the Historical Society got the idea of maybe a tourist attraction.
Somebody brought in a container load full of rolling pins to all sorts of sizes, and he thought it was a great idea if we would sort of hide them on the beach. And we were the first volunteers, and I started engraving them with Westport South Beach Historical Society initials and the year. We started out hiding them, and of course the best place to hide them is where people don't really expect them. Some of them we throw in the water and they get washed out. Some of them we put behind logs, so they have to look for them.
We wanted people to find them, and the idea behind it is having folks come down here in the wintertime so that the businesses benefit, the town benefits, so on. So the idea was to have people come down and look for Japanese glass floats. These are not reproductions done by a glass blowing company or novelty company. These are the real thing, which really stands out, other than the fact that we do engrave them. In the wintertime, it's the beachcombing and the solitude and the storms. Storms are cool.
The storm.
I mean, when you stand down at West Haven and look out at the jetty and you watch these 20-foot waves coming in.
Yeah, or go up on the tower. Oh
Down
my
at the
God.
tower.
Yeah.
Oh.
Our hope is visitors experience Westport and see why we believe Westport is the last best place, just like we found it to be.